All right, we'll get started. Welcome to the December
It is December.
meeting of the Omaha Public Power Board of Directors. My name is Tim Gay. I represent District 3. This year I'm the chairman of the board. I wanted to introduce my fellow members. Director Mark Trinan represents Subdivision 1. Director Ann McGuire, she's representative in Subdivision 2. Director Ricky Yoder represents Subdivision 4. Craig Moody representing Subdivision 5 on here. Vice Chair this year, Tom Barrett, representing Subdivision 6. Nick Mines in Subdivision 7. And then our board secretary this year is Mike Kavanaugh in Subdivision 8. Mike is down here. So to my left is President, CEO Tim Burke, and to the right, Corporate Secretary Kim Tracy. Just you could silence your phones. This meeting is being recorded, so everything you say up here at the podium will be recorded, and this could all be accessed on our website. So the agenda is in the back. If you haven't grabbed it, there's an agenda posted in the back. If you'd like to comment on public comment, you can come right up here to the microphone, state your name and address. We do have a time limit here, and it's 3 minutes. What it is, just there's a light system, green, yellow, red. So when it's yellow, you're at 2 minutes. When red comes on, you're done at 3 minutes. I'll let you finish your conversation or thoughts. If you have any questions or would like some feedback or answers, direct those questions to myself. And then we got plenty of people here, expertise, that could answer that question, but we don't want a dialogue going with a bunch of different board members. So that's what we do. Other than that, Tim, you want to, I think we got everything. The safety briefing, you want to walk us through that?
Very good. Thank you very much. You're on the atrium level of our Energy Plaza building. In the event that we need to exit this room right here, we would exit out to the back doors or these front doors behind the board here. Move to the stairs and exit on the 16th Street side. As you go down the steps, make sure you use your 3-point touch, 1 hand on the railing, 2 feet on the ground. The fire extinguisher is just on the other side, across from the auditorium here on the other side of the wall, just right around the corner. There's another one in the kitchenette. There's a first aid kit and an AED, one on top of each other before you would go into the cafeteria area itself. Be on the right-hand side on the brick wall, one on top of each other. And is anybody here certified in the use of an AED or in CPR? So very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. If you have a medical condition, please write it down or tell your neighbor. In case of a fire, we would ask you not to use the elevators. It doesn't appear that we would need to do that, exiting on the atrium level side. And so I believe that concludes my safety briefing.
Okay. One thing I did forget, this is, I think, our second month of a consent agenda. We do have a consent agenda today. There's 3 items on it. If any board member wishes to remove anything from that consent agenda, they can do so now. I don't see that, so we'll go with that. Kim, do you want to do the announcement of public notice of this meeting?
Sure. Notice of the time and place of this meeting was publicized by notifying the area news media, by publicizing same in the Omaha World Herald and outlets, by displaying such notice on the arcade level of Energy Plaza since December 5th, 2017, and by mailing such notice to each of the district's directors on that same date. A copy of the proposed agenda for this meeting has been maintained on a current basis and is readily available for public inspection in the office of the district's corporate secretary. Additionally, a copy of the open meetings law is available for inspection in the public meeting book located in this meeting room. Now to the consent agenda items. Item 4 is approval of the October 2017 Comprehensive Financial and Operating Report, the November 16th, 2017 board meeting minutes, and the December 14th, 2017 agenda. Item 5 is the board's declaration to reimburse 2018 capital expenditures with tax-exempt bond proceeds, resolution number 6221. Item 6 is board authorization to negotiate and award a PPA for wind generation, resolution number 6223. If there are no corrections, changes, or additions to these items, I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Public comment. Anybody would like to speak on these 3 items? Let's see. Vote.
Barrett?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Gay?
Yes.
McGuire?
Yes.
Mines?
Yes.
Moody?
Yes.
Trinan?
Yes.
Yoder?
Yes.
Motion carried. Agenda item number 7, resolution number 6220. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Omaha Public Power District that the 2018 corporate operating plan is hereby approved.
So move.
Second. There's a motion and a second for discussion. Are we going to have the presentation on it?
I believe we were going to do a
There's
short
a
presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Javier Fernandez, our Vice President, Chief Financial Officer, will do a short presentation. We did discuss this somewhat last month as well, for the record, and then we've held comments open for the public for the last month on our website and any other comments to board directors. So we have discussed this before, and this is for action today, so I'll turn it over to you, Javier. Go ahead.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. The 2018 corporate operating plan, as was presented in more detail to the board last month, really hasn't changed much. We made a few editorial changes, spelling things that we needed to change on the plan that you saw as a draft, but the content is pretty much the same. I've had an opportunity to chat with a few of you and clarify a few questions. I hope that was useful, but I'm here to talk if you have answer any other questions you have. With that, I'm just going to go through really quick an overview of what the corporate operating plan has. This is a very high-level overview. The 2018 proposed budget summary is $1,122,400,000 round numbers, and the pie chart in front of you shows where the money is going to go. As you can see, the two major categories are fuel and purchase power, and our operating and maintenance non-fuel expenses, followed by the light blue wedge there for debt service and other expenses, which is our third largest item. We have payments in lieu of taxes of about $34 million, a capital expenditure budget of just short of $148 million, and a small amount that you can't really see on the screen, but for funding our decommissioning and benefit reserve, in accordance to what I explained last month, and then a $151 million decommissioning expenditure. This is, again, to continue work on the Fort Hill decommissioning project. You received a letter from New Gen Strategies and Solutions LLC, which is an independent review that has been asked by the board to an independent company to come in and review the budget, make sure that we're applying best practices, and that this budget is not only representing what we're telling you that it's representing, but that it is sound and in accordance with utility practices, that we are maintaining good standards of reliability, financial stewardship, and so forth. And we believe that it's the same letter that we've received in the past, and it's a favorable letter. You have the report in front of you. Just a really high-level summary. I strongly believe that this corporate operating plan meets all the strategic directives. We are really much in line with what the board has asked us to do, especially when it comes to strategic directives 2, 4, and 7. We are still aiming to having rates to remain below regional and national averages. These marks our second consecutive year of a no general rate increase. And we're still investing in all the programs that we need to maintain system reliability. This budget continues to incorporate more renewable resources to generate at least 30% of retail energy. And again, we will continue to work. This is not the end. We will continue to find opportunities to make our operations more efficient, lean, and continue to save money for our ratepayers. But that's something that we will continue to do through 2018 and beyond. It's something that is already part of our operations. And with that, so here we are today. We have the board meeting, and if you choose to approve this budget, this will give us authority to spend this budget starting in 2018.
All right, thanks, Javier. I'm sure there's board comments or questions. We'll get started with that, and then we'll take some public comment if there is any comments or questions.
Yeah, I have a question, if you go back a slide for everyone. And if we go into the renewable resources generate 30% of retail energy, can you tell us exactly right now for 2018 what percentage of renewable energy resources we expect to have? Approximately, obviously, because it has.
Well, exactly. I don't know exactly. You just approved a resolution for us to
That's what I
negotiate a
want you to talk
PPA
about,
for
yes.
wind. We believe, and we executed a wind agreement, the wind PPA recently for the Shoals facility that's coming online. Whether it comes online at the end of 2018 or 2019, that's going to determine the amount of renewable resources we generate. Overall, I have confidence that we will end the year with 30%, 29.67% of all of our energy generated by renewable resources. I believe with the addition of Shoals and with the new PPA that you just approved us to execute, we are well on our way to be at least 40, if not 50% of those renewable resources by 2020.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to toot our horn on that one.
Javier, when you say the rates remain below regional and national average, what are the rates and what's the regional average? I know these are kind of questions that may not in your wheelhouse.
It is in my wheelhouse.
Oh, okay.
Better be.
All right, then we're in your wheelhouse.
The reason for my reaction is it depends on which year you're asking. We just received information for 2016, so it lags. We have there are independent organizations that survey and get all this information from different utilities, and the information we have lags sometimes a year, sometimes more than a year. And you asked about our rate. We have different rates for different services and products, so it's hard for me to tell you exactly which rate. What I presented at last month's board meeting, our average rate is in the $8.90 per kilowatt hour on average, but it's hard for me to tell exactly which rate you're talking about. We are definitely below regional and national averages. I can say with confidence that we are at under 10% of the regional average, I think based on the latest information we got, compared to the region that we're comparing ourselves, which is the mid-north central region.
Javier, when you said under 10%, that probably meant we are under by at least 10%, right?
By at least 10%.
Yeah, I think our corporate scorecard, as we've identified, is in the 12% range based on 2016 information that we presented to the board of the corporate scorecard. Right. And then again, our direction is really to be 20% below the regional average as we kind of move through over the course of the next several years and beyond that, is to move to be 20% below the regional average. That's our directional goal.
And that's as of 2016. For 2017, we'll wait for next year, and I'll be able to do that.
So I had a follow-up question to Director McGuire's query. The corporate operating plan lays out pretty clearly that demand is going to be flat, and so our generation, I'm guessing, will be pretty flat. And our renewables are going up. Did I read it correctly that our fossil fuel purchases are also going up?
Correct. The cost of the fossil fuel purchase is going up.
The cost, so maybe not the amount, but the cost.
Correct.
Yeah, the only difference would be is that 2017 was a year where we had an extended outage at Nebraska City 2. Mm-hmm. And so we don't anticipate any outages in 2018, no scheduled or planned outages of any significance. And so therefore, the megawatt hours generated from that generation will be greater than in 2016. Hopefully that's helpful.
The cost, yeah.
Okay, any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I've got a couple.
no.
Yep.
Thank you for getting together a couple weeks ago. That was really helpful. I think one of the things that I appreciated most was a better understanding of the decommissioning funds that we have and the fact that we're funding the decommissioning benefits fund. Could you just give kind of a quick overview of those three funds to make sure I'm clear on what they are?
Of the three decommissioning.
Pension,
Yeah,
the
so-
pension decommissioning.
Yeah, so naturally we've got decommissioning is kind of the big, hairy, expensive thing that's out there. And to what extent, I'm curious to understand how well we're funded, what those funds are, just kind of a nickel tour.
We're well funded. We're definitely funding according to the plan. Back in 1990, OPPD established its first decommissioning fund, as required by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. We have been funding that fund for ever since 1990, for the past 27 years. In 1992, OPPD decided to fund an additional fund out of caution, and just to make sure that we had enough funds in there for when the time came to decommission the plant, and that therefore today we have those two funds that are used for exclusively decommissioning purposes. The rules that govern each one of those funds are a little bit different. Some are more flexible with regards of the notifications we have to make to the NRC, or the speed at which we can use those funds, and that really gives us leverage to use those funds in the best possible way, but always using them for nuclear decommissioning. So those are the two of the three funds that you made reference to today. The third fund is one that sits empty as of today, and this is a fund that was created by OPPD about a year and a half ago, and this is the Decommissioning and Benefits Reserve. This is a fund that it allows us to apply fiscal discipline, and in years like this year, where we have positive net income, we have excess cash, we can use that excess cash and park it, if you will, in this fund that can be used for decommissioning or benefits at some point to fund our unfunded benefit funds. It's going to sit in that fund until the board decides to take action on it, until we have completed significant portions of decommissioning and the board feels that we're at a place where the risk of decommissioning costs being higher than what we have in the fund is low, and therefore the board can make a decision of using those funds then for benefits, or at that point for something else. But it would require board action, and it's that third fund that gives us that fiscal discipline to have an additional layer of security for either one of those liabilities.
Perfect. Follow-up. So as we're paying for decommissioning today, spending a lot of money on it as is, as we pay for that work, those services, are any of the payments that we're making today coming out of any of these funds, or is that cash on one of those?
Now it comes out of those funds, and the way it works, the second fund that I described today, one that has more flexibility, we're funding that fund every month, and we're also using funds every month. And this is something that with Mary's team, we're very, very focused on making sure that we're getting the most work done for the least amount of dollars. I can report that in 2017 and in 2018, the amount of money that we're putting in the fund is greater than the amount of money that we're taking out of the fund for work. So the fund continues to grow at the same time as we're completing significant portions of work on these very large projects.
Can I ask one more follow-up?
You're the boss.
So that's helpful. And then in terms of the pace at which we're making expenditures, are we anticipating kind of a ramp up and an increase on an annual basis over the next few years? Because I know Safe Store will ramp down eventually, but I'm kind of wondering where we're at in terms of that outgoing expenditure, what those costs are like.
We're still under the Safe Store process. We're obviously, as you will describe, we are following a certain pattern. Decommissioning, we have large projects, so sometimes those amounts will vary year over year. We may have years where those expenditures may be a little bit less or a little bit more, depending on when we have bids coming in, large projects of work completed, but by and large, we're still very much in the same Safe Store plan that we presented to the board under the board.
Okay. If I may ask one more reserve fund, if you can discuss the rate stabilization, how we're fully funding that this year?
Absolutely. The rate stabilization fund is a little bit older than the decommissioning and benefits reserve account. This is a very common fund that it's common in all utilities, where given the nature of our business, we have a lot of volatility in the industry, and it is recommended and it's highly appreciated by rating agencies and investors and ratepayers, in that case, to have a fund that can be used if expenditures exceed what our forecast is during the year. And those expenditures may require a rate increase in the following year. We would use funds in the rate stabilization account first to ease any potential rate increase that could be a result of an unforeseen event. We've used that fund in the past. We depleted that fund quite a bit, and we have been gradually and very faithfully restoring that fund to the point that we have today $42 million in that fund. Our goal is to have 50, and so my proposal as part of the COP is to fully fund that fund with an additional $8 million that will bring us to the $50 million target. And it will sit there, and we hope we never use it, but if we have to use it, we'll use it to stabilize rates.
Right, and that $8 million comes off our revenue, but then goes into the fund.
Correct.
This is great because $8 million, how much would that be for as far as a rate increase? How much would one rate increase be as far as percentages?
So, roughly speaking, about $9 million equates to about a 1% rate increase. Mm-hmm. So it makes us stronger by $8 million, which could help us potentially offset a 1% rate increase in the future. Just these $8 million.
And the $50 million is what is normally suggested as far as other...
For a utility of our size, for generation profile, is something that it's common and it's suggested by rating agencies and investors.
Thank you.
Well,
any other questions, comments?
Sure. Javier, I appreciate the hand-holding that you have done for me as a new board member and the patience you've shown, and thank you for that. One of my colleagues asked a question, and I'm going to turn to you for that answer. The question is, it looks like net revenues are increasing slightly, and so the question is back to the revenue neutral promise of the rate increases. Can you explain what appears to be maybe a difference there?
And if I may, I'll correct you.
Sure.
You mean revenues, not net revenues.
Oh, thank you.
I have the advantage because you sent me that question in advance.
I did.
It's revenues. Well, total revenues are increasing.
This is why I turned to you.
Total revenues are increasing. We are seeing a very modest increase in load of about 0.1%. So you're right. Load remains flat. Our commitment to a no general rate increase and the rate restructure really is not resulting in additional revenues above and beyond that additional load that we're experiencing. Now, revenues are comprised of retail revenues and wholesale revenues. And so there's a piece of revenues that are increasing due to wholesale revenues as well. We are operating our units way more efficient than before. We continue to find efficiencies, which means that we can put those units and bid them into the market and be able to get revenue from the market when we make our units more efficient. We're learning and we're working with each one of the generation units to figure out how can we ramp down and ramp up their production when the markets are favorable to us so that we can increase that revenue and then be able to subsidize the full budget. We're also now receiving some additional revenues from the new transmission line that we recently completed, so that's also additional revenue that has nothing to do with the rate restructure or the rate increase. We are generating additional revenues, but not related to the rate restructure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I've got a couple more.
Yep.
Could we go back to the pie chart that we had up there earlier? So sort of building on Rick's question, and if this is not there's no simple answer, I apologize, but I'm kind of curious when we look at each of these wedges on the pie, which ones we categorize as a fixed expense and which one is variable. I mean, obviously fuel and purchase power is variable, but could you give me the quick rundown of which falls into which category?
Yes. Let me start with the most fixed of them all, debt service. Mm-hmm. This is one where we have a commitment to investors. It is possible that we at some point change that, but that would be probably the last resort. That would mean very, very bad things for the district and its ratepayers. So that's probably the most fixed of them all. Mm-hmm. The payments in lieu of taxes is based on a formula, and so that goes up and down, but pretty much every year it's in that range. Absent any negotiation with other jurisdictions would be very onerous. I would expect that to be pretty stable.
Sure.
It is variable, but it's stable enough. Capital expenditures is another. It's a variable one. We have the ability to ramp down the capital expenditure piece. It's obviously one that wouldn't come without a risk. So it is variable, but it's tied to very specific capital needs for the industry, the organization. Being one of the highest capital intensive industries, that's one that I would consider somewhat variable, but we're pretty committed to maintaining
It's
our
not
assets.
going to fluctuate based on kilowatt hours sold.
Correct.
Right.
No, it doesn't.
So no, it's-
Fluctuating from kilowatts sold, I would say fuel and purchase power is probably the most variable of those,
Yeah.
although it's not 100% variable.
Sure.
We have to maintain a certain amount of fuel regardless of how much power we use, just as we need to have resiliency and spinning reserves ready to be deployed. The non-fuel and O&M is probably the second one that is probably the most variable.
Okay.
And this is where what I was referring earlier. We have a center of operational excellence, and we have implemented a lot of lean programs in the organization, where we continue to find efficiencies and do more with fewer resources. We continue to find ways to negotiate contracts, sourcing strategies, things to try to squeeze as much value with the resources we have. So that one is somewhat variable. It does not vary necessarily with kilowatt hours, but it's one where we have some flexibility, and that flexibility has demonstrated to be to the lower end, and we will continue to find opportunities to save money.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about the non-fuel O&M is that if you think about how we've looked at fixed and variable relative to the customer service charge, the reading of meters, the meter itself, the maintenance of meters, the outage restoration, those are all non-fuel O&M related pieces that we would consider fixed to do that work. How we do that work may be a different decision, but it's fixed to be able to continue to do those things, bill the bills, pay the bills, purchase equipment, restore power outages and response. So, that piece, even though there are elements of that to be variable or ebb and flow based on desires and needs, it's really fixed on the operation piece in that regard. So just relative to the rate restructuring,
Okay, that's
which
helpful.
I think was the context of the question.
Yep, that's helpful. Thank you. Okay, one last question. When you were here presenting on this last month, I asked you what the biggest risk was, and I was really intrigued at your response. I don't know if you recall what your response was, but the first thing you actually mentioned was the potential federal legislation tax reform. And now that we've got at least a potential bill that's come out of conference committee that we might know a little bit more about. I know it's pretty recent, but I guess I'm just interested in if you could elaborate on that a little bit more. I mean, are there certain, and I'm not looking to throw any other politicians under the bus, but I want to understand from our standpoint what risks do we see as a result of that potential legislation?
Thank you. There are certainly some risks. I'm relieved after seeing actually the latest news we got, which is number one, the maintenance of the tax exemption status for municipal bonds. That was probably one of the major risks that not only OPPD or public power, but virtually every government in the nation was facing, the risk of much higher borrowing costs that would threaten infrastructure. That did not come through, which is a big relief for us. The potential reduction or elimination of production tax credits was another one, and I believe that at least the latest version is that it's not going forward. It's another big relief for us. There were some other changes on advance refunding, or ability to refinance bonds in advance. That one is likely going to come through, and it obviously restricts our ability to refinance debt earlier. It doesn't eliminate it. We can still refinance debt, but not with the same flexibility that we have today. And probably the last one is on sequestration and the effect that could have on certain subsidies we receive from the federal government on Build America bonds we have. But all in all, the two largest ones don't appear to move forward.
Seems to have improved.
Correct.
Since we last talked. Okay, thank you.
So I can sleep a little bit better today
Good,
than
good,
a month
that's
ago.
good. Okay.
Hey, Javier, I have one quick question. I don't know, the North Omaha generating plant had 5 units. 3 of them were changed to propane, or natural gas, sorry, and the other 2 are coal. I think it's scheduled in 2020 or 2022, 2023 to go. Are those units going to be changed over to natural gas, or are they going to go dormant? Or
That's a great question. It's a strategic question. In the budget that we're presenting today, there are no changes. We're still assuming that North Omaha 1, 2, and 3 will continue to be on gas, and 4 and 5 will continue to be on coal for basically virtually the same role that they have been playing in 2017. Your question is more of a strategic one, and to be determined. So far, we haven't really taken any different direction. It's still very much the same plan.
okay, I mean, is there a date on it, or I thought there was like 2022?
Yeah, I think it was 2023 to 23, 24 kind of timeframe where we would kind of look at that and then look at what are the alternatives and what that may look like. And so we're a little early to begin to take a look at that, but probably in the 2020 timeframe, we'll begin to think about what that may look like. Okay. And if you had to, we have to maintain capacity in our operation based on our commitment to SPP and based on our peak demand. That's why we're trying to reduce our peak demand by a variety of the NEST and programs that we're doing to reduce that peak demand, and therefore we need less capacity to really purchase or replace in the future. So we'll have to make those decisions and determinations as we get better information. And my guess is between now and then there's another technological change that will occur that will put us in a better position.
Thank you.
Good. All right, well, important topic, obviously. But Javier, I'd like to say, too, just this is your first operating plan putting together, but I just wanted more of a comment to the finance division and all the senior managers. Every month we review the finances, and it's amazing how right on your estimates have been on some of the budgets. And I know there's a history to all this, but also I know and I was going to give a shout out. I know we lost Edward Easterling, and then Tammy Monroe stepped in, did a great job. But your whole team, I'm sure, did a great job putting this together. So I wanted to publicly thank all of you for doing that and getting you going. It's going great. And I just didn't see one blip. And that's pretty darn impressive for changes in a big company. So kudos to all of you, and appreciate it.
Thank you.
What we'll do now, Javier, there might be some public questions. Is there anybody from the public who would like to comment on our operating plan? Doesn't look like it's done such a good job explaining it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, then we'll vote on this.
Barrett,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Gay,
Yes.
McGuire,
Yes.
Mines.
Yes.
Moody,
Yes.
Trinan,
Yes.
Yoder. Yes. Motion carried. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Director McGuire.
Okay, I have the honor to read Resolution 6222. Whereas John T. Hansen, Vice President, Energy Production and Marketing of the Omaha Public Power District, will retire January 1st, 2018, completing an exemplary career with nearly 35 years of service with the district. And whereas on June 18th, 1983, Mr. Hansen joined the district's Production Operations Division as an engineer. He became supervisor of North Omaha Station operations in October 1996. He was manager of North Omaha Station 2002 to 2006. He became division manager production operations on June 4th, 2006, and was named vice president energy production and marketing on March 1st, 2010. Whereas after 35 years of devoted service to the Omaha Public Power District and its customers, the board wishes to publicly recognize John T. Hansen as an unprecedented leader for many of his valuable contributions to the betterment of OPPD. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Omaha Public Power District, at a meeting duly convened on the 14th day of December 2017, desires to publicly acknowledge the important contributions of John T. Hansen and express its gratitude for the commitment, integrity, and pursuit of excellence consistently demonstrating during his years of service. Be it further resolved that a suitably inscribed copy of this resolution will be presented to John T. Hanson upon his retirement to serve as a constant reminder of the sentiments expressed herein. Here it is.
Now we got some good things to say about you.
We have a lot more.
Yeah, we're just
Do I get the roasting first?
Yeah.
Okay.
I asked John. I asked Director McGuire too. She's worked, and I know Director Kavanaugh, of course, too, has been so many years working with you. But I know you worked so closely with Ann. I said,
Yeah.
and you do this. So we're going to give her first shot. It's all going to be good to say good things about you, I think. But we'll see.
Okay. No, there's just one little thing. No, the first time I ever met John was up in North Omaha back in the 2000s when we were looking at the new coal handling facility, which he had touted, and he was absolutely correct. There isn't hardly any dust in that coal plant anymore based on the upgrades that they had done on that. That's the first time I met him. And after that, I started going on all the stuff with him, he and Dale Whiteau, for many a year. And then he became VP, which was even more amazing. We spent many a day up at Fort Calhoun, along with Mo Dogman, during the past few years. And he did an amazing job and still is doing an amazing job, as far as doing the oversight committee at the nuclear power plant. He's respected not only here, but he's also respected in the entire industry. I don't know if many people know, but John just retired from being the president of REML, which is a electric utility industry company, a rather nonprofit, that its whole goal is to dedicate it to the discussion of and education of vital issues occurring in the ever-changing electric industry. John also has a strong passion for the outdoors and nature conservancy. His nickname up in North Omaha was Birdman. He put up a box up on the stack thinking, that's a perfect place to try to get some peregrine falcons to come up here. And everybody made fun of him because for 10 years that thing had nothing but pigeons. But one day, all of a sudden, we get in a director's report is the peregrine falcon has landed. And I think they even had a camera on this guy for a while. And he's come and gone. I don't know, John will have to maybe tell more stories about that. But he is called the Birdman up there in North Omaha amongst his fellow employees. You're going to be a loss, John. We appreciate your very calm, quiet demeanor, but at the same time, I can always tell when you're getting riled up. I don't know if his family can tell, or Beth can, but you can sort of tell when he's sort of getting riled up about something. And he said, he's seething, he's going to say something. We better listen. So thank you, John, for your many, many years of service. We're going to miss you.
Director Kavanaugh, I know you served with John.
Sure, and John and I we went to the same grade school, I don't believe, many years ago. We were about a year apart and didn't know each other until a few years ago. Where do you start? John's been steady as a rock, to say the least. Your contributions and leadership, not only in the fossil plants but in the nuclear oversight, has been huge to this organization. I've counted on you many times for your advice, and you never let me down. I appreciate your incredible loyalty to this organization. You're certainly going to be missed. I can't speak enough. Thank you very much for your service. Congratulations on your retirement.
I agree, John. Also, I haven't been around as long as our senior members. Many of us, a lot of changes on the board, but experience, Ann. That's what I throw. But anyway, I just appreciate always working with you. It's been great. You're one of the first people that I walked around with, talked to, and taught me a lot of things when I asked dumb questions. Still did. But anyway, I just want to say, consummate professional. I've always admired your professionalism at the meetings and the way you deal with the public, and the board and everything. And I've always heard just great things from other employees too about they love working with you. So you will be missed. It's unfortunate this has to be on the agenda, but wishing you all the best. And I know your family's here today too. I'm sure others want to say something, but we'll let you introduce them maybe at the end. But I know, Mick, would you want to say anything or go with anybody else?
I heard rock. You're a rock, and we appreciate that. You are a consummate professional. You are just a pleasure to work with. I want to thank you, and I look forward to hearing some more stories.
I'll tell some of those later.
Tom, you got-
Jeff, it's been great being with you. I met John when I started 5 years ago, and we have an interest in hunting and fishing, and I've been out to their place to shoot turkeys. But he is so proud of his family. He talks about his kids all the time, and if he is 1/10 of the father that he is an employee and a friend and trusted and reliable, and just a deep thinker, then he's an amazing father. So I want to see him again, and you're just an amazing person.
Also, on behalf of the board, to your family, thank you, because I know a long career. He's been gone a lot, I'm sure, in evenings and meetings, and I know even out of the country and all the different things he does. So thank you, family as well. Any other comments from the board?
Yeah, just real quick, John. It's only been a year, but it didn't take long for it to be really clear that you have a passion for this organization. That just shone through immediately. So congratulations, and thanks for your service.
I'll pile on. It has been great working with you, again, only for a year. The loss of institutional memory, I think, is, I'm sure we'll handle it, but I can't imagine how. You've been great. It's been fun. We've had the opportunity, and I've enjoyed it, sitting across from you in the meetings. I occasionally see the twinkle in your eye when I'm about to say something, or not. It's been fun. For a man who's, quiet sailing, it's been fun to see those demonstrations. So best of luck to you.
I'll say I just regret getting here so late in your career. Gone for a month.
If you would mind,
Go ahead.
I'd just like to say a few things a little bit. And I think a lot of you have really encompassed a lot about John. What I know about John certainly is, the old duck theory about that duck seems very smooth above the water. But there's a lot of stuff going on underneath that really represents John's work here at OPPD. If you touch the things that we have done to transform this utility just in the last 2.5 years, but if you move out even 5 years, John has his fingerprints all over it from a leadership perspective. From the generation portfolio changes that we committed to in 2014, he's actively involved in doing that. From the ongoing environmental improvements and reliability improvements of all of our generating facilities, his hands have been on that. The improvement of safety in your operating business units, and really encompassed last year as being the best year in 70 years. You were really part of that, and you really led that. Certainly an executive leader on our cost and process improvement. And so, Javier gets the opportunity to talk about no general rate increase in 2018. John's part of that with some of the work, truly as one of the executive leaders of our cost and process improvement initiative to truly make a difference. And in John, I just think what you've done for the senior team. The words I used to one of our internal corporate comm folks was around sage advice and incredibly wise. And so I know where he lives. I know his cell number. And my guess if we get Beth to go out to lunch with us, he'll come with her. So we'll still be able to get that institutional knowledge. So John, as a good friend and as a great leader here at OPPD, thank you very much for your service. So John really embodies our core values. Passion to serve, honoring our community, and caring for each other is him and Beth's active work in the community, serving the youth of our community that have some of the greatest needs in our community, is just a great reflection of the great work that you have done, not only outside but inside. And so it's been a wonderful career for John. So thank you. Beth, thank you very much. And kids, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
So appreciate it.
Well, very, very good.
Yes,
Yeah,
please
absolutely.
do.
Yeah.
So my better half, and two of our girls and my son-in-law here, Dan, Anna, and Emma. Tracy has been working, and our son is in college. So they are part of the reason, a large part of the reason that I've enjoyed success here. But I'll tell you, the people that work for me, work with me, are a large reason for how I need to be successful. I'll tell you, this team is awesome too. Our senior management. Thank you for your great 35 years.
And now we do need to vote.
We do need to vote, I suppose.
Unless we have public comment or whatever.
Let's do that. Make it official.
Okay, Barrett,
Yes.
Kavanaugh, Gay,
Yes.
McGuire,
Yes.
Mines,
Yes.
Moody,
Yes.
Trinan,
Yes.
Yoder. Motion carried.
It's unanimous too, John, so that's a good.
Line colors.
Anyway, best of luck to you, and thank you for your service. Okay, with that, do you want to do a president's report or go right to the?
It's up to you, but let's go to the.
Yeah, I'd like to, we're going to go to item 10, the presentation on community solar update. Jeff, you want to tell us what's going on?
Thanks, Director Gay. I wanted to give you an update on where we're at on community solar. I'm Jeff Karloff, Division Manager, Production Engineering, Fuels and Renewables. And so what I'm going to present today is kind of what we've been up to. We're going to take a look at the objective, the design principles, discuss the research, the market research that we've done, a little bit of information on the proposals that we sent out, request for proposals we sent out, and then customer solicitation, and finally kind of what's on the agenda for us, what's the next steps for us. The objective that we set was we wanted to develop a community solar program that will provide a solar option for all customer classes. A design program fully funded by participating customers to ensure a 5-year, no general rate increase. And then finally, to meet OPPD's mission to provide affordable, reliable, and environmentally sensitive energy services. The design principles that we had as we were going through the process were that we wanted to avoid cost shifting to non-participants, wanted to make it available to all customer classes, make it simple to explain, transparent, and based on actual results. We also wanted to use the learnings from the community solar program for our future distributed energy resources, maybe like battery or other things that might happen in the future, that we don't want to recreate the wheel when we have other types of these renewables that come onto the market. We did both qualitative and quantitative market research. On the qualitative side, we had really we had one workshop where we had 12 folks who we work with, kind of solar champions in the community that we work with. The second part, the power panel, is about 24 folks. From those, we just wanted to find kind of some general direction where to go to help us inform where the quantitative would go. And so during the stakeholder workshops, we found that they wanted a simple, transparent, and available to all customers, like you said. The customer demand is high. Project size is not necessarily critical. Visibility may be physical or virtual, meaning that necessarily doesn't have to be on I-80 or right where people can see it. It could be just about anywhere as long as it's affordable. And in the last bullet, they're affordable and educational value is needed. The power panel, which was about a couple dozen folks, really the indication we got that the highest interest is from environmental advocates and higher income customers. On the quantitative side, this was a power panel of about 600 participants. What we found there is that those participants preferred the pay-as-you-go model, preferred to the pay-up-front model, which means that instead of a huge upfront payment that they could opt into the program and not much of a payment at all going on in the future, they preferred a lower upfront payment and kind of an increase on their bill that would carry on through their participation in the program. The interest level showed very little change across price level tested. Even with the bill increase from 15 to 20%, the participation stayed at about 15%. People would say they participated in. Participation terms not critical. Again, location's not critical. Of those surveyed, 53% felt the program should be funded by program participants, while 38% felt it should be funded by all customers. A little bit on the proposal details. So we sent out an RFP. We got about 100 proposals from about 10 developers. The three areas that we're focused in are an I-80 near Gretna. So if you can imagine where the outlet malls are, between that and the rest areas, that's one area. The city of Fort Calhoun, about a mile east of the city of Fort Calhoun, and the Bellevue landfill, which is Cedar Island Road and 25th Street in Cornhusker. That's kind of a bounding area of that area. So we've got those proposals. Also, you would imagine that we'd have to connect all those areas to our system, and they all have different interconnection costs. So we'd have to add those interconnection costs to the proposals that we got. So each one of those will have a little different perspective on how much they cost. The pricing methodologies we considered, the first was avoided costs. It's kind of what the next incremental part of generation would cost at OPPD. The second is an embedded cost methodology. That's really kind of what all the production costs of all our units at OPPD are, excluding the past costs for Calhoun. And then finally, the solar valuation method, which we actually look at the solar curve and look at the SPP market price to see what value that solar has in that time frame. This is just a little demonstration. What this graph shows is that the red line is actually our system peak from August 11th in 2016. The red line is the system peak, and you may not be able to see it, but the left-hand grid goes from 0 to 2,500 megawatts. And so the blue line is actually our solar facility at the Omaha Center. It's a 40 kilowatt system. And you can see the point that we make is that the community solar, when it comes in, does not hit our peak. The peak of our load is later in the day, and the community solar peak is a little bit earlier than this. And so a couple of clarifications on this graph. It almost would appear that the Omaha Center solar facility covers all our peak load. It's not. It's a completely different scale, but we just wanted to demonstrate the different peak parts. And a little bit more interesting is that, so the solar facility at the Omaha Center has all different types of solar panels. This is just the solar panels that pivot on two axes. So this is probably the most optimum solar shape we could get from the Omaha Center. The proposed program components, we think we're going to probably have a refundable deposit. That's kind of that, instead of a big upfront payment, maybe a smaller upfront payment. We think about a contract term of 3, 5, or 10 years. We develop contract minimum, maximum, maybe a minimum a person can get in percentage-wise on their bill, and a maximum. And then you can transfer it within your service territory. If you move within OPPD service territory, you can just stay on it. And the terms may differ from customer classes. We'd have different acquisition strategies for both residential and commercial and industrial. You can imagine that. It would be a different way to go after those folks depending on the different aspects that they have. And then finally, kind of the next steps are we want to come back to the board and present a business case and a formulate, probably in the first quarter of 2018 once we get that all settled and make sure it's clarified at that point. That's all I have. Any questions at all?
Questions from the board?
Hey, on that, can you go back to your graph?
Yeah.
So does that say that OPPD's peak happens at 4:30? Oh, here it is. Or is that hour like 8 or whatever? Is that just a time frame of the day?
When is the peak?
I think that's hour 24 is, so that would be midnight. That would be midnight, and then our peak is like it's
17, so
6 or 7 or 8 kind of in that time. Yeah, so it's shifted about 3 hours before that, I think.
Okay.
If you remember, our AC management initiative really is looking at that peak demand from 4 to 7, which we typically see as our peak. And so those are kind of our hours we would typically see our peak. And in this example of that solar array, then you would see that kind of drop off as that peak was occurring. So it's just a good understanding where you don't get 100% of that peak value of that load.
And it's a little bit interesting. You can see on that, the blue curve up there, it kind of goes up to a peak and then it drops down a little bit, then it comes back up. That's that 2-axis tilting of that solar panel that kind of optimizes to the angle of the sun. So just a little bit interesting putting up there.
Details.
Any other questions at all?
What would it say somebody who has a bill of $150 a month right now, what would their bill look like if they wanted to opt in, they're residential?
Director Barrett, we're still looking at that to confirm what that is, because we want to make sure we have a business case that looks at kind of all aspects before we commit to that, I think, at this point.
Okay.
The capacity factor for our wind generation now is approximately how much?
It's about 40 to 45.
It's about 40 to 45. And what do you expect the capacity factor for the solar to be?
I think solar's in the 20 to 25.
Okay.
Maybe a little higher, maybe lower, but I think that's about what it is. In our area, it's a little bit lower than maybe, say, Arizona or California, or somewhere maybe in the Southwest.
Yeah. And then when we put on our first wind farm, I think it was Flatwater that many years ago, our capacity factor then was supposed to be about 20, 25. And with the things improving, 10 years from now, hopefully we'll have better solar panels that the capacity factor could be as high as 40, 45%.
Could be. We have months when it is 40 to 40, 44 to 45%. So.
Right.
Hey, Jeff, I know others have done this, Lincoln, and I know today there's exciting news that OPPD has a great project going on. Question is, as I learned about public power over the years I've been involved in it, not everybody, well, why don't you do this, why don't you do that? But everyone's different, our market's different. And so I don't get into that, but I guess I think it's important we reach out, and I assume you have talked to Lincoln, LES, and NPPD and say what's going on, because to me it's interesting how everyone shares information in public power. It's kind of cool. So are we reaching out to them and finding the best? Yeah, I noticed. That's why I kind of bring that up.
Excuse me.
Dave Rich smiling.
Hello, Dave Rich.
So I know, like Dave has a ton of experience in this, and you can learn from things. So we're reaching out to them.
Yeah, and we, when we started the stakeholder outreach, we wanted to have a lot of that information so we could kind of feed that out and give them kind of different flavors of what it would look like. And we used a lot of those examples to kind of present those to the stakeholder groups to just kind of get a flavor of where we might want to go.
I figured you were.
Jeff, the curve is very interesting, but if we include batteries down the road, that dramatically changes everything.
Yes, it does.
Right?
Not only for solar, but for wind as well.
Right. Yeah, well, exactly right. So, things are changing really fast. It's hard to pull the trigger in any of these options.
And I would say when we go through this, we'd like to pick the approach that stands the test of time, not just something that's going to work for a couple of years, but will work in many other distributed energy resources, or even battery or solar. So that's kind of the direction that we're going.
Dr. Karloff, where are the centers of excellence in terms of the technology development? Who's developing this technology ahead of everybody else?
I don't know if I can comment on that too much. We're kind of in the nuts and bolts of it right now. Just that we've got proposals and we've got that. So I don't know if I can comment too much on that, Director Trinan.
But Jeff, would I be incorrect in saying China is probably the leading developer of photovoltaic?
Okay.
I mean, I think that's where you see worldwide the developer and the manufacturers of photovoltaic, and to Director Moody's concern earlier about the tax plan and issue, and some of the search tax relative to that could negatively impact these kinds of solutions. So we're paying attention to that as well, and what that may look like.
And I think the integrated energy marketplace, the folks that are working on that are kind of focused in on those things that are kind of further out and where things are going, so that all our kind of solutions kind of align up when we're all going in the right direction.
One final question. Would we consider investing with a PPA, for instance, in an array that's further south in the United States, outside our service area, where maybe the production is stronger than it would be here on north?
Yeah, certainly from a community solar, these are relatively small, and even though customers would say the proximity isn't critical, I think the intuitive conversation is we'd like them nearby, right?
Sure.
But from a utility grade as part of our generation portfolio, that would be something that we would consider. I think we would see significance. You see that capacity factor going from 20 to 25 to 30 to 35 if you go to North Texas or into New Mexico, which is still part of SPP, which we would want to stay within SPP to you get the value and the benefit of that. And there may be some value as that technology continues to develop that we'll look at. What's beneficial for the wind piece and what the board just approved us to go out and negotiate and execute is that we have some of the highest wind resources in the United States. So we're sitting on the wind oil field here in Nebraska, and we're taking advantage of that. So, but as the solar strategy may develop, it may be something different than what we see wind in Nebraska.
And I don't think we tested the visibility part of it, if it needs to be really close where people can see it, or if it could be somewhere else. I don't think we tested necessarily if it should be in Nebraska or in Texas or anything like that. So we really kind of focus kind of near our community in our general area. So.
Yeah, one thing, we've talked about, I think, Tim, you brought this up, but I like the pace of value. I mean, some of these things happen, I know, but there also has to be has to make sense financially. That's where I brought up earlier, everyone has their own companies to run, different areas, different clientele, different things. And I know it's public power, but for me, as we go forward, looking at some of these things, it'll be interesting to see, does it make sense or why are we doing this? And the way you're going with this is those that want to be involved will be involved, but the general ratepayer will not, or doesn't. We're not forcing anybody to do this, is where you're going. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
If you go back again to the history of Flatwater, that was not, that was far more expensive than what other, our energy sources were. However, there was people who were interested in that and were willing to do that, and that's how we started the Green Plan, the Green Power Plan. The people, with the idea that would help subsidize that farm.
That's the first wind farm.
The very first wind farm, and if you see how we've progressed, in that.
A couple of quick comments, questions to Director Mines' point about batteries. I'm pulling from our presentation that Troy Vi did on Tuesday, where it says, and I quote, grid-scale storage costs are expected to decline to a level competitive with traditional natural gas peaking resources within 10 years. That's quick, and that'll totally shift the market. Detailed question, high-level question. Detailed first. The Bellevue location, does that currently have a methane capture system on that landfill, and/or if we install solar there, will it affect that in any way?
So it's the first question. I don't think it does. At least we were by there the other day, and I didn't see anything. I don't think so.
No? Okay, and installing a solar array there wouldn't preclude or prevent that from, I don't know what the retrofit opportunities are for methane capture. I would assume it's probably pretty expensive and minimal.
I don't know. Just we've done it, at Elk City, we did the Elk City, and I don't know. And I think the issue, it's always an issue of how much generation you can get, or how much methane generation you can get from that size,
right.
And how much infrastructure you want to put into that.
Yeah, sure. So I want to zoom out just for a minute. Can you help us understand why we're doing this? Like, what led us to this point where we said it's time for us to do community solar? What drove that decision?
I think just the community interest that we've got in it, that they were, and I think that was a little bit of why we did some community outreach, just to make sure to gauge and make sure we had a beat on what customers wanted to do. And I think we heard it, and then we wanted to verify it through the stakeholder outreach. And I think that's kind of the process that we went through.
Sure. Okay.
Very similar to the wind, the initial part of the wind.
Yeah.
So another question on this then too is we've had public meetings on this before. You got a group. Can you walk us through that a little bit? You had a stakeholder group or small stakeholder?
So we had a small stakeholder group that kind of started the whole group out. It was probably a dozen solar advocates, and we've met with them probably 3 or 4 times maybe. In fact, we met with them yesterday to kind of gauge their opinion on the direction we were going. And so, it's kind of that process where you kind of use a small group, maybe a little bit bigger group, and then you kind of can form so that when you go to the big group, when you do the big stakeholder outreach, the panel review, is that you got a good idea what questions to ask and make sure you have your questions are couched correctly. And I would tell you, I mentioned this yesterday to the stakeholders that we met with, that I'm amazed that our market folks who do that, they get questions from both sides, how the questions were formulated. And to a question, every one of them are answered and they make me feel comfortable that we're going in the right direction and that we ask the questions in the correct way. So maybe that's a too complicated question.
Are any of the stakeholders here?
Of course they are.
Oh, okay. Dr. Corbin, is he one?
Well, okay. And on that, this is so we're doing a presentation, and then there'll be public comment during the regular comment time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So
not today,
there's still
right?
more. Yeah.
No, we're not going to go into it. They're going to comment today.
Sound like a
Are
great.
we doing a
great
comment
kid
today on it?
No, we're just having a
During the
presentation,
regular
but when they
comment
do their
period,
individual comments, they can
Yeah.
say whatever.
Yep, okay.
So, any other board comments or questions?
The only
Yeah.
other thing is, you know, there's a lot of people out there who are interested in putting independent solar panels on. You know, they're interested as far as the environment, as far as climate change. To me, this is an opportunity. That costs a lot of money. And to me, this is an opportunity to then get better bang out of your buck and better value to go with some type of a solar community that everybody sort of, those people who are interested, sort of combines their interest in this solar community farm rather than putting up, they might not be able to afford to put one on their house, and it's not going to be as efficient. This is going to be more efficient than theirs on their house.
We'd like to take advantage of the economics of the size of
Yeah,
the facility.
it's
to-
economies of
to make it
scale.
more- Yes, exactly.
At least that's what we're looking at right now. So any other comments or questions for Jeff? Because here's what I'm going to do is I asked Tim. Tim's is giving a speech at 5:30 or so. So I asked him. We'll do the president's report next month. So yes, I don't want him to be late for that. So Tim will give us that in January. But what I want to do is wrap it up. Anything more with Jeff?
I'll go ahead
No
and
rush. No rush. Hold on, Jim. So we can take as long as we want. Then what I'm going to do, there is not public comment on this particular thing, but right after is going to be opportunity for comment. So I assume if somebody wants to talk about this, they can. And then we're going to have, like you said, over the first quarter, several discussions and more information. So I'd really that's kind of where we're going on this whole thing. There will be plenty on the Tuesday meetings and in our regular meetings. So hey, go ahead.
So to Director Moody's question, what brought us here, to the comment from Director McGuire about there are many people that want to put up their own independent systems. I struggle with this a little bit, our timeline. Customers are expecting this. We have commercial customers that feel as though both ag and those who are working for corporate goals, that OPPD's current policies on those independent systems appear to be, harsh word, obstructionist. They're slowing down the way that they're doing things. So I was excited when I heard that this was the opportunity, the model for how we might address DER. And I'm frustrated a little bit as someone who, on the campaign trail, over a year ago, was saying OPPD should not get in the way of people who want to use their land, who want to do things behind the meter. And OPPD, I think, thought that this process was going to offer a solution for everybody and be a good move forward. So I struggle with this pace. That's what I have to say at this point.
I think the only response I give you, Director Yo, is we're being cautious to make sure that we have a good solid foundation, something that we can use now and in the future.
Anything else on the board? Any questions? I don't see any. All right. Thanks,
All right,
Jeff.
thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. As I said, the President's report, we're going to skip that for this month. On behalf of the board, this is our last meeting of the year for this year. I wanted to thank senior management and all the employees of OPPD for doing a great job. There's been some, every day is a challenge, I'm sure for you, but some of the different changes that have occurred throughout the year, the storm in the summer, and just the many other times that employees go out and do a great job. Thank you all for doing that. So wanted to put that out there. And then as we go into next year, we're this board and new director, Director Trinan, and the loss of Director Hurley. There's just a lot of things happen throughout the year. But the employees of OPPD, I got to say, have just been phenomenal. And really, and also with the broadcast we do and some of the things we're doing to be transparent, there are a lot of people that come to these meetings too, I know, that are regular attendees at the meeting and involved. I think we get a lot of engagement. That's kind of amazing. Kim does a great job too. Thanks, Kim, for reaching out and all the communications team, because I do think we have a very open process here compared to other things. So throw that out there. So that'll replace the president's report, but not as long as Tim's either. So that's good. Anyway, with that, we will go on. Item 11 is an opportunity for you to comment on any items in the district.
Thank you. David Corbin, 1002 North 49th Street, representing the Nebraska Sierra Club. First of all, as you know, I have the opportunity to attend your committee meetings, and so since we don't get to speak there, I write notes so that I can say things publicly here. And I salute you for having the innovation teams and looking forward to what kinds of new technology we might expect. But there's one thing that I thought was lacking, and that is customer behavior. You put the AC thing on, and that's automatic. It doesn't change anything about how the customers do that. There's one thing about 6 years ago, we brought somebody from OPPD to talk about how they do their bills and how it gives feedback to the customers. And the research shows it's since been bought by Oracle, but it shows that people will decrease their energy on average by 2% across the whole utility. That's 2% that you could take off that red line that you just saw there and draw those lines closer together. I would encourage you to do that because it also increases customer satisfaction. They get better feedback, and then they therefore like what the utilities are doing more. So it doesn't have to be OPPD, but some on bill that tells customers where they are, what time of day is best. It gives frowny faces and smiley faces when you're doing well or not doing so well, and it sounds silly, but it works. Related, also I wanted to point out, and I'm sure you're following it, but the Department of Environmental Quality came out with their first draft of what to do with the Volkswagen settlement. They only put 10%, they're allowed to do 15% for recharging, charging stations. They only put 10% in the budget. I will hope you will encourage them, as I think NPPD will be doing, to ratchet that up to 15%. There's nothing in there for electric school buses. We're in the area where there's the most Volkswagen cars and the highest pollution, so we should probably at least get one pilot electric school bus out of that, and I would hope you would advocate for that as a utility. In terms of the solar, yes, I appreciate being on the solar stakeholders.
30 seconds.
And being on the stakeholders allows us to give feedback. I do want to say, once again, as I say at every meeting, there's no reason why the Green Fund couldn't be used to jumpstart the solar, and that you could carve out, since you have residential, commercial, industrial, carve out a percentage of that for nonprofits. Let's say it's Habitat for Humanity or Sienna Francis House, to be able to get solar, and therefore it's not costing the customers anymore, because these are people that are already voluntarily gave money for green. So I encourage you to do that.
Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you.
And Dave, one thing on I know we are following the VW settlement. Director Yoder's very involved in that, and Moody and others, so we are following it. I don't know exactly where we're at, but we will stay tuned. Lisa, do you have anything to comment?
We did submit information, a statement on it, as well as supporting the 15%.
Okay.
So we will respond to that.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of emails floating around on that.
How much did Nebraska receive? From the
like 14.25 million or 12.25.
Okay.
Okay.
It's just in their draft plan, they only were going to get 10%.
Yeah. So
we're
following it for you.
I know. I just want to make sure
Just throwing it out.
that you let them know that we have the most pollution and the most cars. So, but I also ran out of my 30 seconds. So I wanted to say best wishes to John Hay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
John Pollock, 1412 North 35th Street, Omaha. Well, we've got about a week more of mild weather, and then we have a major pattern change, and it looks like the meteorological and astronomical winter will start at about the same time, in a week. For those of you who have young people on your gift list and snow-related toys, I'd say about 2 in 3 chance that they get to go out and either on Christmas or the day afterward have a snow cover to use that toy. So winter's coming, believe it or not. As far as a more sobering note on winter coming, I don't think we've hit criteria yet this year for ceasing shutoffs, but anybody who gets shut off after early next week without a chance to recover is going to be in a bad way because, of course, they won't have any heat and their plumbing's liable to freeze by late in the week. And I am always thinking about the people that can't afford to make their payments. I would also note in passing that when it comes to rates, what people care about is their bill and not their rates, so that it's the total of the fixed cost and the rates. And I want to keep reminding you of that too. Lastly, because of my personal environmental concerns, but it's got a broader applicability, I bought a plug-in hybrid since the last time I was here, and I'm learning about it. It gets about 3 miles per kilowatt hour. Total charge is about 10 kilowatt hours, and I charge it at night. I believe that behavior is beneficial to the utility, but relevant to what David Corbin was saying, the utility doesn't provide me with any statistics or incentive to tell me that. I think that it would probably be to your advantage over time to start developing that sort of thing, because I'm probably going to end up tripling or quadrupling my electric bill. I'll find out, but I intend to do that charging at night because I know that that's when the renewable part of the portfolio is the greatest, and it's of best benefit to your utility. And the decision was driven by the fact that you're heading toward 50% renewable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Hi.
Hi.
Chelsea Gentry Tipton, 3418 Franklin Street. Good to see you guys. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
I'm Jewish, so it's third day of Hanukkah, so I'm
Happy
happy to go
Hanukkah,
home and light
yeah.
my candles pretty soon. I wanted to kind of come to you guys a little bit personally this week, instead of really giving you Sierra Club rundown, give you kind of a little bit of personally my life as an OPPD customer, because I know I'm in here advocating for Sierra Club and working hard for the community, but I am also somebody who is my entire life really on the borderline of poverty. I was raised by a single mom who is highly educated, but very sick and was unable to really pay for all of our bills. And even now, I have 7-year-old twins, and my husband and I struggle month to month just paying bills. So, you know, I kind of to piggyback on what John was saying, I really encourage you guys to look at the shutoff process. Somebody like myself, who I'm actually very gainfully employed, still have a really hard time paying my $200 to $300 bill every month. And for me this month, it ended up being paying my OPPD bill or paying my mortgage. And so it ended up being my OPPD bill because they were not flexible at all. I was going to get my power shut off. And so I really, 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 really would like for you guys to look at the social impact of what we're doing here. People like myself, other people who are in here coming monthly, people that are customer owners, people are really directly affected by this. And personally, the fear, you know, of having your power shut off when you have kids in your home, animals, you have a life you have to live. It's really, really detrimental. Not only just, the fear of having the power shut off, but psychologically it really messes with you. Being faced with having to figure out how to keep a house or how to keep power is something that nobody should really have to go through. And there should really be some kind of better options for us. I know I spoke with Yoder previously, and I really encourage you guys to look at like the Minnesota model. They do not shut people off during October and April, regardless of how big your bill is. There has to be something better that we can do for people, because, speaking personally, this is a huge issue. And when this power gets shut off, we are in Nebraska. I'm from California, San Francisco. I can't deal with 30-degree weather. You say that 32 degrees, we are going to, anything below that, for me, that is freezing cold. And for my kids who are premature and have health issues, they can't be without power, and I'm not the only one. There's still many families in the city who don't have power, who haven't had power for months because they can't pay the bill. And once that bill the power gets shut off, the bill is so deep and they're so deep in debt that it's almost impossible for them to get power back on. So I really encourage you guys, especially while we're here on the holiday season, everybody's home with their families, I'm going to be home with my family, to really look at how there are people in this community that we all represent that we're failing because they don't have power. Thank you.
Thank you.
And on that, thank you for your personal comments on that. It's a great reminder. And John, too, thanks for reminding us. We always pay very close attention, and try to do the best, most compassionate job we can on that. So I know every year that I've been on here, and probably every year since, it's something we take very seriously and look into. So thank you for that reminder. We have policies, and we'll make sure that they fit. You know what I mean? But you're right. There's real people involved at the back end of this thing. So appreciate your personal comments on that, and we will watch it. Okay. Thanks.
Laverne Dran, 49th in Chicago. 10 seconds.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again.
Thank you, John. I know you're on the fossil fuel side, and I haven't been much of a friend.
He's also on the wind side. He was responsible for about 40% of that wind.
But he's always listened to me
50%.
with great respect and with enormous patience. So I just wanted to thank John. Also want to thank the video crew and the live streaming. I watch it in my car, watch it cleaning my house. I was able to do a 3-month binge watch a couple weeks ago. I missed it over the fall, so that was awesome, being able to just watch meeting after meeting after meeting. The 5-hour meeting, come on. I had to get up at 4 a.m. to do that one. And I want to thank the nuclear decommissioning team for speed, under budget, and safety. I'm so joyed with that. I want to thank the finance for the lucky bond trades and the no new debt and the no new rates, and all of that during your decision to make a transition. So I know this is extra costs, these extra teams, this extra research, this extra stuff off of what you normally do. So somehow you're able to get better financial situation in the midst of all that. So I really thank for that. I want to thank the innovation teams for the transformation of the company from the inside out. I really do want to thank those teams. I want to thank you, the board, the management, and especially the teams of administrative assistants for keeping the management teams organized and focused. I know you all got ADs. I want to thank the old timers, and I want to welcome the new folks all up and down the company. I know there's lots of new people happening. And I want to thank you and wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Now, I do have a solar proposal. $10 million out of the lucky bond trade, $10 million out of a USDA loan, which you are now able to get as of 2017. That was changed during this last administration, something you haven't been able to get over the years to be able to do rural development with renewables. There's still a federal renewable energy credit. You currently have low solar rates. You can buy in bulk with further discounts. Rural redevelopment with renewable with no backlash, because solar panels never upset anybody. Distributed to the southern and western areas of your service area, deployed on currently owned property, which increases the productivity of that land and value.
30 seconds.
Your battery program, batteries increase the value of solar, solar adds value to real estate. Innovation programs, you get lots of experience and you get to answer all the questions. Increases the value of the OPPD brand by demonstrating environmental stewardship in your rural commitments. And getting a video of solar battery installation to revitalize rural communities is priceless. And your marketing department will love you. I believe OPPD could accelerate the closing of the coal and receive a bonus savings from the closing. And OPPD can postpone the destruction of the coal plants until it fits
Time.
into their budget. They only pose a danger when operating. And all of this creates shareholder and customer satisfaction. So thank you very much and have a great year.
Thanks. Thanks, Laverne. Hey, Laverne, too, we appreciate everyone's comments, but I'm going to make sure Tim Burke listens to yours on. Thank you.
Well, I really appreciate it, too. Good to be here.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Yep.
Good afternoon. I'm Dave Rich, Columbus, Nebraska. I'm Sustainable Energy Manager at NPPD, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here to share NPPD and my appreciation for OPPD offering to allow us to participate in the wind RFP. I think it's another great example of how we work together in the renewable areas and the energy efficiency areas over the past 10 years. I've been fortunate to work with a lot of great people at OPPD, many of who have retired: Mark Nichols, Dean Mueller, and now Tim Yeager. I'm looking forward to who the next person is I'm going to work with in wind. I'm looking forward to working with OPPD in these new areas: battery storage, the electrification of the transportation area, and energy efficiency areas. So thank you again. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Good evening. I'm Cliff Messner, 2524 28th Street, Central City, Nebraska. I am a developer that developed a solar community garden in Central City. I developed and own the NPPD pilot projects in Scottsbluff and Venango. I wanted to say I think you're on the right track with what you're doing with your solar program. I think you've thought it out well. I know you've taken the lead with some of the stuff that NPPD has produced, has done for you. If there's anything I can do to help, I'm happy to do that. I certainly want to share all the mistakes that we made so you don't have to make them again. But one thing I didn't hear today, and I wanted to make sure that you were aware of, is that you have city councils and city administrators in your area that really want you to come out with a solar program sooner rather than later. They want you to deflect rooftop solar for them, because rooftop solar becomes a zoning problem for them. And people are going to go out and put solar up because the credits are going to come to an end and they're going to make up their mind to do it. And that's going to be a problem that's going to show up at city council meeting over where that solar should be placed and how it should look. And they're really looking to you to provide them an alternative to that. If OPPD gets their solar program in place, they will be able to say, if you want solar, buy it through the community program there. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that, because when we were down here looking at the RFP, we heard that response from a number of the communities. So thank you for your work. If there's anything I can do to help, please let me know.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? With that, we're adjourned. Thank you.